So, drill baby drill. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, taking the environmental things out of the question, we're going to talk about that today. So it's really difficult to be able to determine just how much crude oil produced in the United States is consumed here in the United States. And in this video, I'm going to be utilizing a lot of data from the EIA, the Energy Information Agency, to come to some conclusions. And here we're going to have a logical discussion about drill baby drill. So it's true that most of the crude oil products produced here in the USA are consumed here in the USA. But that's alongside crude that's also imported from other countries like Canada, Colombia, Mexico, different countries where we generally import our crude. But for the most part, most of our crude oil products are consumed right here in the United States. Now, the EIA, when I reached out to them while researching this video and this article, they weren't able to tell me exactly how much crude oil exported from the United States is actually produced here. They don't have an accurate number on that. And they also can't tell me exactly how much is exported. So a lot of these numbers are left up to individual interpretation. And there's also some questions about how much of this stuff is placed in storage and how much of this petroleum products they're actually able to trace. So there's a lot of data that's just left on the table here that we don't have answers for. So in 2023, which was the latest data that we have available to us here through the EIA, the USA consumed somewhere around 21.6 million barrels of oil per day. That's a lot of oil. And with crude oil capacity, that was about 12.9 million barrels per day. So this is quite a bit of oil that the US is consuming. And the total consumption of petroleum products here in the USA, somewhere around 20.2 million barrels per day. So as you can tell, the United States, there's no secret about that, between fossil fuels for cars, manufacturing processes with things like plastic, stuff like that. And again, I'm taking the conversation about the environmental impacts completely off the table. The US uses a lot of oil. But now I want to talk about refineries. And refineries are a huge player in this chain. Now, I want to talk to you very specifically about the big players. Now, there's a lot of smaller players out there, companies, like Tally Asphalt or Targa, or maybe even Kinder Morgan, right? Magellan Partners. These are kind of mid to small time players in the production side of things. Now, the last time that the United States saw a real refinery come online that was producing massive amounts of oil, enough to really meet our supply and demand goals or our supply and demand needs, was way back in 1977. That's when this refinery in Garyville, Louisiana, operated by Marathon, came online. When it first came online, it was producing about 200,000 barrels of oil per day. Right now it's producing close to 600,000 barrels of oil per day. But since this refinery by Marathon in Garyville, Louisiana came online, we've seen something happen. Now, that wasn't the last refinery built in the United States, not by any means. There's been many other refineries built since then. But here's the thing. Their production capacity is much lower than that 597,000 barrels per day that we're seeing come out of Garyville, Louisiana. Now, some of the bigger ones like Kinder Morgan's facility in Galena Park produces 105,000 barrels per day capacity, okay? Some of the other ones are somewhere around 20 to 25, maybe even reaching as high as 50,000 barrels per day. This is pretty insignificant. Now, since this refinery came online in, when was it, 1979 or 1977, whenever it was, there's probably been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's probably been a dozen or so refineries come online since then. Combined, their total capacity is nowhere near what Garyville, Louisiana, the Marathon refinery there, is. So you're probably asking yourself, why is this even important? Well, now I think it's important to look at the players in the game. So what Drill Baby Drill does, and we've heard this saying in recent history for quite a while. What Drill Baby Drill does is it does loosen some of the regulations on American oil suppliers. Now, it will increase production, it will increase jobs for a little while, but these jobs will eventually go away. You see, the oil and gas industry ebbs and flows. One day it's here, the next day it's gone. That's just how the oil and gas business works. Now, if you'll remember, during the previous Trump administration, OPEC Plus decided to flood the market with oil. And that drove down gas prices. That was not an effect of Drill Baby Drill. That was an effect of OPEC flooding the market. Would OPEC consider doing that again? It's probably not off the table. Now, obviously, fewer regulations can be a good thing. It frees up business to do what business needs to do. But the reality of all this is that no matter what you do, these refineries are looking to produce oil. And they're looking to produce oil cheaply. How do they do that? The answer to that question is simple. Imported oil. Imported oil is a huge component of this system. Now, most of these refineries were tooled, or they were designed or built in the 70s and 80s when the U.S. had a iffy relationship with foreign countries. Now, you'll remember sometimes the old Oscar Wilde thing in Coastal, the oil for food thing with Iraq, and a lot of this other stuff that happened. But here's the whole truth to this big matter. No matter how much domestic oil you put into the system, refiners will still use cheap foreign oil. Why? Because they like cheap foreign oil. Yes, they could absolutely use a lot more of American crude, absolutely. But here's the thing with this. The American crude oil is expensive. No doubt about it. It costs a lot to make the products using exclusively American crude. Now, some will argue that you can't use exclusively American crude in our refineries. That's actually not correct. They can use American crude, and we all know, if you've been around the oil patch at all, you know that different crude coming from different plays has different viscosities, and that's measured by something we call gravity. Okay? The gravities are different, whether it's Saudi basket, WTI, whatever it is. There's different gravities, different weights, different viscosity. Okay? This plays a part in this whole production process. So whether you're making gasoline, diesel, kerosene, whatever, propane, whatever it is, sometimes you need different viscosities, different weights of oil. You can get it exclusively from WTI, but the process is going to be even more expensive. Oil and gas companies, they're like any other business. They don't like to eat into their profits for production. Now let's talk about the players in the game. And I'm not talking about the oil companies, and I'm not talking about the gas companies and producers and all that. I'm talking about the people like Elon Musk. Have you ever wondered why Elon Musk really wants to be part of this administration? And why he's backing somebody that wants to drill, baby, drill? Because Elon Musk is smart enough to recognize the human factor and human behavior. Elon Musk is a very, very smart man. And Elon Musk isn't going to be oblivious to this idea that humans will react the way human reacts. So, what he's betting on is that the oil industry will do exactly what the oil industry has always done. Either innovate and create solutions that draw us off of fossil fuels, or they'll collapse themselves entirely. That's what Elon Musk and these folks around Elon Musk and Donald Trump are betting on. Here's the thing. Donald Trump has outsmarted himself and he doesn't see this. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing and I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's just sometimes there's a saying out here that says you can be too smart for your own britches. Well, if you're too smart for your own britches, then you're just going to get outsmarted every single time. Now, there's going to be some naysayers that say that I have no clue what I'm talking about. I totally get that. The trolls online will come at me saying I'm just a fool and I'm just on here randomly talking. But here's the thing. Why would you take somebody who depends on cars for his money? And why would you take somebody at his word to back somebody who wants to drill, baby, drill? There's really only one answer. The powers that be that truly control this show realize that Donald Trump can be easily manipulated and he can be easily confused. Now, this whole idea of selling people this idea, drill, baby, drill, may not be a bad thing. It's going to create some temporary jobs that make a few people a good amount of money. The average run-of-the-mill person working out here in the patch is going to go broke rather quickly when there's a downturn in this economy. That's just how this system works. You see, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, but you can sure slap back at it. And I think that's what these people like Elon Musk are doing. They're slapping back at the hand that feeds them. They know that Americans like to hear drill, baby, drill. They also know that producers like to produce their product as cheap as they can possibly get it. How do they do that? Very simply. They make their products with imported oil because American oil is very expensive. Now, if we're talking about the differences, if you're OPEC today, you're already making some backroom plans to flood the market with oil. Yeah, places like Oklahoma, Cushing, where we store quite a bit of this oil and where it all kind of goes through. They probably can't take much more oil right now. They already run pretty close to capacity as it is on a daily basis. Our energy reserves, it's a pointless conversation. All you're going to do is top them off for a day that when you need them. So what Trump is going to do is he's going to relax these regulations that make it more difficult to drill. And he's going to flood the market with American oil. Then what's going to happen? Mark my words. OPEC Plus is going to come back and they're going to flood it even further. And you say that you're going to cut the supply of foreign oil. Good luck selling that to the producers. The people who actually refine the oil. The people far, far, far downstream. Good luck selling that to these big companies. They don't want to hear it because they're in the game for profits. And how do you make profits? You make oil products with the cheapest material you can make them with. And that's imported oil. So, when you're talking about this thing, it's a lot more complicated than it just seems on the surface. You see, when you're not bought out and you're not beholden to one side or the other, you can see these things. And that's where the real challenge comes into play. Is remember, there's always a cause and there's always an effect. That cause and effect isn't always the greatest thing. It can sometimes put you in a pickle. And I feel like that's kind of where we're ending up with here with this oil and gas issue and drill baby drill.